The damage that's been done here, and that's why there's so much public anger. As Aisha was saying, one rule for them and the one rule for the rest of us.
You use the word damage there. I don't actually see any damage that's been done here. I think Dominic Cummings has made it very clear that, first of all, he did think he was abiding by the law. And from what I can understand, there were certainly exceptions for people who were allowed to move around the country if they had severe childcare difficulties, which is what Dominic Cummings and his wife had. They were in an awful dilemma. And what I see here actually is a man who is not like thousands of the rest of us. Like, Dominic is not one of the thousands of people. As Aisha said herself, he's the most important advisor to the Prime Minister in a time of obscene national crisis. And I see here a man who is torn between doing his job, a job that he obviously takes extremely seriously in Parliament, and doing his job as a father.
Being whiter than white, and have recognised the fact that he would be judged by even sort of anything that looked as if he wasn't in keeping with the rules.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. First of all, none of us is whiter than white. And secondly, it didn't matter what Dominic Cummings did in this situation. He would have been absolutely torn apart from the media by it. And that's the problem.
If he'd have stayed at home, but if he'd have stayed at home and if he had lockdown like everybody else, self-isolated, none of this would have happened. He wouldn't have been torn apart by the media at all, surely.
Hang on a minute. So if he'd have stayed at home with his wife seriously ill and him seriously ill and unable to look after his
thousands of other families up and down the country have had to do.
And something had gone wrong, how do you think the media would have reacted to that? How would they have reacted if he'd, say, got childcare in? Well, that would have been a problem as well, because they'd have said he'd invited somebody else into his household. What if he'd farmed his child out alone to somebody else? He'd have been in trouble for that as well. The fact is, he was caught behind a rock and a hard place here. The media as a whole, not everybody obviously, doesn't like Dominic Cummings because he was the architect of the Brexit campaign. This is almost a continuation of the Brexit Remain debate in many respects. It's a visceral hatred of Dominic Cummings that many people have. Doesn't matter what he is. Dominic Cummings could walk on water tomorrow and the headline in the press would be Dominic Cummings can't swim.
Break or bend the rules, then they can too.
Look, he didn't bend the rules. The media have made umpteen claims that he bent the rules. He hasn't bent the rules. The fact is, no harm was done by what Dominic Cummings did. There's far more harm, frankly, by the media, the media and outside Dominic Cummings' house, which is, let's not forget this. This is one of the reasons why he felt it was much safer to take his family to Durham in the first place, because he was being attacked for apparently turning up at a meeting or not turning up at a SAGE meeting. Again, this kind of a get Cummings attitude that we felt here so strongly, to the point where you had media doorstepping him, despite the fact that he and his wife and child were ill inside that house. I think they made absolutely the right decision to get away from that toxic environment on the pavement. We saw yesterday the shameful scene of journalists haranguing a man for supposedly breaking social distancing rules, while themselves playing absolutely no distancing, doing nothing to socially distance themselves. Complete and utter hypocrisy. If you want to talk about hypocrisy, let's talk about that too.
Well, we would, Suzanne, we absolutely agree.
So on that, the idea that he is that everyday families are facing up and down the country, there has been so many cases where one person could get sick and then the other one might get sick and they've had to muddle through.
So the only person who isn't allowed to muddle through and do what they think is right is Dominic Cummings. That's ultimately what you're saying, I think, Aisha. You've talked about one rule for him and one rule for everybody else. Actually, I think you've just proved your own point. There's one rule for the rest of the country that does what they think is best. And as a parent, I'd walk over hot coals for my family. I don't care what the law would be. I'd defend them to the utmost. Dominic Cummings is no different from thousands of parents out there. He did what he thinks is right, and he's the only one. There have been plenty of other Labour MPs who've broken the rule. That Labour MP that went to a funeral, Stephen Kinnock driving hundreds of miles to go and visit his parents, they haven't had the media pack hounding them out of office on the doorstep. It is one rule for Dominic Cummings and one rule for everybody else, but not perhaps in quite the way you think.